resume recording and share my screen. So we're going to be talking about, we're really going to get into the building out of the planning process now, where we're going to discuss the objectives and strategies. We're mainly going to focus on the objectives, and if there's enough time, move into the strategy development for the community working group. Per usual, our ground rules and group expectations, really just aiming at being nice and being open to what's going on and really just being here to solve the problem. And my favorite, after 7 seconds, we will move on. All right, so what we're looking at, this is the outline of the way RVAgreen 2050 is going to be looking moving forward from now. We've talked a lot about the goals, the vision, and the community priorities. Today, we're really going to get deeper into pathways, objectives, and strategies. So really, what is our leverage point moving us forward? What do we aim to accomplish, and how are we going to reach our objectives? And then ultimately we'll end up in implementation plans, but we will not be there today. Just a reminder on what our goals are. So we're aiming to, by 2030, have a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Richmond and achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And that we are also prepared for climate impacts as they come along. So we're building up a way to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and then also a way to adapt to what is coming to the city of Richmond. Our vision, as we've seen before, all Richmonders, regardless of their identity or neighborhood, thrive in a climate resilient and climate neutral community. And so with climate neutral, very similar to greenhouse or zero greenhouse gas emissions, we're really aiming to make sure that we, instead of just focusing specifically on carbon, are hitting all the greenhouse gases. And we want to make sure that we are neutral in all our greenhouse gas emission. Our community priorities, these are the 7. I hope everyone's familiar with these. This is a lot of what we're going to be focusing on moving forward, especially when we start to look at the strategies that come from other working groups and making sure they connect to something that's really going to not only reduce the greenhouse gas emissions or make us more resilient, but also improve the quality of life across the board for residents in the city of Richmond. So these are what our draft pathways are. So basically, this is what this is a summary of what each of the working groups is going to be focusing on, and kind of like their tagline moving forward. You can see buildings and energy, transportation, waste, environment, and community. The one we're going to be workshopping today for a brief moment is the community one. And so you can look at the other pathways, and these have all been workshopped by their individual working groups. So we can definitely look towards those for inspiration on what we want ours to look like. If we're cool with what ours looks like, that's also fine too. But just moving forward, this is one of the things that's going to describe how we're going to focus this working group moving forward. So now I open this up for discussion. Does anyone want to share what they like, what they don't like, what's missing? Would you like to reword this in any way? Thoughts?
Sorry, I joined late. The only question I had was, while ensuring focus, is that focus on, I think that's what Javon's mentioning too, focus on what? It just seems like it needs a little bit of elaboration.
Okay. So do you have, does anyone have an alternative for just really saying that our guiding, what we're using to guide what we're moving forward are the 7 community priorities as mentioned before?
I might flip it around and add a preposition and just say, while honoring and ensuring focus on community priorities.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I'm just curious to know what the original intention was with saying ensuring focus. What was the original intention with that phrase, ensuring focus? Like ensuring focus on what? If there wasn't any intentions with anything specific there, then I really like what was just said there.
Yeah, so the original intention for ensuring focus was just acknowledging that we were going to connect strategies and objectives to the 7 community priorities that were gained from community engagement over the summer. Cool, cool. There is a poll. Okay, here we go. There's a poll, kind of like, how do you feel about living with the new one that is create an equitable and resilient Richmond while honoring and ensuring focus on community priorities? All right, cool. In polling, seems like we're all good with that. So we will move on to the next part of this. So we've made it past pathways. We're moving on to objectives and strategies. So this is really an explanation of how we're breaking down this process, what we're looking for in each basically tier of the planning process, and how we are looking to describe what the goal of each section is. So in our next section, we're going to look at what the long-term aims we want to accomplish in the different pathways. And there's going to be, I believe we're moving into breakouts to discuss how the different objectives that exist within the other working groups as well, so that we can have a better framework for that moving forward. We are not doing that. Okay, so when we look at what the different inputs for how we're moving forward, you can see what RVAgreen 2050 is building off of. And so how we're focusing our equity, we have our climate equity index. So that's the mapping process we've been used to identify vulnerability across the city of Richmond. We've had training and capacity building within the office. So that includes racial equity training, as well as new employees. The 7 community priorities were established, and there's the equity screening tool that we worked on earlier in this process in previous meetings that will come back out in our strategy check, basically. So we'll be using that to not only build out some strategies, but assess the equity of the strategies themselves. For climate action, we've had greenhouse gas inventories. If anyone has detailed questions that they would like to know about that, Kyla is available to talk about all of those things. Richmond 300, their actions exist. So we are definitely building off of Richmond 300 in some capacity, and not and making sure that we are connected to the goals of that as well. We've been using best practices and examples from other cities across the United States, and we've had the GreenLink greenhouse gas emissions modeling as well. And for climate resilience, there's the climate change impacts data. So that's been helping us really assess who's going to have or where there's going to be impacts, what the impacts might be, and how we can move forward with those impacts. Richmond 300, once again, best practices and examples from other cities and technical experts. And then the climate vulnerability and risk assessment, which we participated in about 1 or 2 meetings ago. And so while we're drafting the objectives, we kind of want to look at what were the Richmond 300 goals and objectives and how can they possibly connect to some of the community priorities that we have and what we're looking for out of Richmond 300. So you can see from their different goals, there's the complete neighborhoods. And so we know that within community wealth, there's an interest in seeing small area plans, job access, and connectivity. So really looking through a lot of these and identifying where there's going to be similar goals and objectives and strategies that exist within Richmond 300 and how we can take those and make them more focused on climate action and climate resilience so that we can build off of all the planning processes that are happening in the city of Richmond. From other plans, we have looked at other plans from other cities and acknowledged that there are different strategies and objectives that we did not see in Richmond 300. So that includes things like energy efficiency and partnerships, health equity, communication barriers, equitable development, resilience and racial equity tools. So these were things that were very specifically acknowledged within their climate action plans, and some things that we want to really build out in RVAgreen 2050. Maybe that's really up to y'all, like that's kind of the purpose. But like, here's some ideas of things that can be built out moving forward so that we can address not only these things, but also make sure they're tied into environmental justice and environmental climate equity moving forward. So really having a more holistic view on what economic mobility and jobs would look like with the lens of offering up green jobs or jobs focused on sustainability and climate action in the city of Richmond. So later on, we will have an activity to really discuss how, if these are our draft objectives, are these objectives that we want to use moving forward? We'll be looking at the objectives from the other working groups, but we are also going to have objectives that we're going to be building out strategies for. And our 2 objectives that we will be aiming around will be the priority-based ones of government accountability and engagement and communication. So number 1, it would be an objective for engagement and communication. Number 2, for government accountability. But that will, you will definitely have time to give your thoughts on the wording, on if that really addresses what we're looking for our objectives within those community priorities, and how we may want to rephrase that or improve the language of it to make it more, make sure it's accessible to all residents within the city of Richmond. So this is just like a brief preview of what we'll be working on later. But what we're going to do first is I'm going to shoot this over to Kyla so she can explain our next activity.
So we're going to go into 4 different breakout groups. They'll be led by a facilitator, and the facilitators will be from the other working groups that meet. So we're going to take 10 minutes to have a discussion about their objectives, and we're going to reflect on whether the statements are overarching but provide enough explanation. And then also, if they could be worded better or differently, we would like to hear your feedback from that as well.
Does anyone have any questions about what we're getting ready to do?
Would you be able to drop the link to that, to the document we're editing in the chat?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
There you go for everyone. And if there are no other questions, we're going to have about 10 minutes per working group to have the discussion, to learn about why the objectives were created this way, and a little bit more information about which each working group is doing, and then time to get your feedback on that as well. So have fun.
Am I stuck without a breakout room?
Are you not in a breakout room?
So I just got back to the office to log on. Sorry, Kendra.
No, it's fine. I'm laughing because there was another Sarah, and I was like, there's a Sarah.
No, I'm late. I'm sorry. My doctor is running behind, but you can stick me anywhere if it makes sense. I don't know if you can do that retroactively.
Oh, yeah, I can. Okay. Here we go. Setting this up for Kyla. There you go.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for participating in those breakout groups. If there is anyone that would like to give any takeaways from your groups, from your discussion, this is an opportunity for you all to do so. Remember, there is a 7-second rule. So
I think overall, there should be some smaller, there should be like intermediate timelines, given that we're working towards 2050. I still think the objectives, if they include timelines, it seems more achievable.
Yes, and one of the other things, I don't know if I've shared this, is that the planning process is supposed to be reevaluated every 5 years. So we're kind of building this off in a 5-year process every time.
I quite enjoyed going into the breakout rooms and talking to all the different working groups and what they were thinking of. So it was nice to know what's actually happening outside of our own group.
Yeah, I agree. It was really good to hear the different objectives. Really exciting stuff happening across the board. How can I join in one of these groups? Is there a link that you'll share?
yeah, so the other working group meetings are accessible to everyone. They're open. If you look on the slide that is currently up, it shows the next dates for each of the next working groups. So you all can feel free to participate in those other working groups if your time permits and if you desire. If there aren't any other reflections, I would like to just point out that I just added a survey that we're asking you all to take. And Kendra, do you want this to happen now, or does it matter if they do it after the meeting?
I think it would be helpful to have it now. So it's going to be the strategy. You're signing up for the working group whose strategies you want to look at and connect to the community priorities. So now that you have an understanding and it's fresh, it might be the best time to select which working group you're in order of which ones you're most interested in working with. Also, for the other meetings, email me with the meeting you're interested in attending, and I can share the invite with you.
All right, I do believe that was 7 seconds. So if there is no, as you said, to put it out there in 7 seconds. But if there are no other reflections, we will be taking a 5-minute break prior to going into our community working group objectives and strategies.
So yeah, if everyone could be back 1:13, That would be great. What we are going to move on to is looking at our own objectives and our strategies for those objectives. We'll have 30 minutes. We're going to break you out into groups of 2. There's going to be 30 minutes to talk through the objectives that we have and the strategies that we want to build off of. And so that's 30 minutes total for both parts of that. If you want to break it down, it could be 15 minutes each, or it could just be the time you use. Once you're done talking about the objective, you can just move immediately into the strategies. I will say we are the guinea pig for strategy development. No other group has really done strategy development. So this is going to be a first run on this. And we'll be looking at strategies again in the next meeting, but we'll also be looking at strategies from the other working groups as well as our own. Well, depending on which group you signed up for or what your ranking was, I'll try to get everyone in the group of their choice. We'll see how that falls out, but we are going to divide into 2 breakout rooms. Kyle and I are going to be your facilitators. We're going to do engagement and communication and government accountability. This says 10 minutes, but it's really 15. So that'll give us a better ability to really get some feedback back on this one. It's really just going to be kind of like a little bit more detailed than what we did before. So it's not just going to be language accessibility and equity based, but is this the objective statement that we want? Is there something missing? Could we say it better? What are we looking for out of this planning process? And are we meeting that with the objectives as we have them stated? And then we're going to develop strategy bucket. So that's going to be groupings of the different strategies that we will start to draft moving forward from today forward. Any questions? All right, when you get your breakout room invite, the fastest way for me to do this is just say this. If your room invite says room 1, do not join it, if that helps. So if you are in room 1, hit cancel or ignore. If you are in room 2, please join room 2. All right. Oops.
Is that right? Did I do the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe okay, wait, we're coming back. Kate, you're muted.
Hey, I was sent to room 1, but I left, but there are some people still there.
Yes, let me get them out. Hey, if y'all could leave and go back to the big room, we'll meet there. And so you just have to click leave room at the bottom of the screen. Wait, was I muted while I was talking in the other room? That's unfortunate. Okay, so what we are going to talk about is if everyone could go to slide number 31, we're going to talk about engagement and communication and the objective that we have there. well, so go to slide 32. So what we are, does everyone have access to the Google Doc? Should I send the link again? Just to make sure. So support a culture of climate action and resilience through equitable communication strategies and engagement. Any thoughts? Can we live with this? Is our objective meeting our needs? Do you feel like the language is accessible? And then on slide 33, you can write down your notes in the these sticky note things that are on there. And so we see we already got some comments on that, and we can really add more to see if we're really meeting the objective behind improving engagement and communication from the city of Richmond for this planning process.
Hey, Kendra.
Yes.
So when it says a culture of climate action and resilience, obviously culture is big in businesses and all, but agencies. So is there a city, I know y'all have mentioned like Portland before, but is there an example of a city that is in the process of or has created or in that trajectory of creating a culture of climate action and resilience that is equitable?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to think on that. I need to think if I could, if there's a city that takes it beyond their Office of Sustainability or Climate Action and it's more integrated within planning and infrastructure development. I'm not certain.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely, if I find it, I will share that information. And then another thing to ask, like, are we happy with the way the objective is phrased as it stands?
So is this like a look into the future where one has already been created and then once it's created, we're supporting it? Or are we creating a culture of climate action and resilience? Or are we in the process of creating it and this is like a futuristic objective and once it's baseline and all, then we're supporting it?
It is, we're in the process of currently creating it, but then just
From a theoretical perspective, right?
Hmm?
From a theoretical, Well, it's an objective for sure.
Yeah, it's an objective. We, throughout this process, are improving our communication strategies. So it's technically an objective that is in action right now, but there's no identified strategies within the planning process, and it's just us doing things in the office, if that makes sense. So there's no
Yeah.
real direct goal right now.
I guess culture, because you're right. We are supporting and we are moving on this idea with consistent communication, but it's not supporting equitable communication with regard to sustainability. It's supporting a culture, and I don't think the culture has been created just yet. But maybe it's just me, a little hungry.
I would definitely say the culture is not there, but the communication strategies.
Hmm. So we're supporting the idea of creating a culture.
Yes.
By way of equitable communication, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Okay, we just want to put you anywhere where, like a couple conversations are like on the trip. So we would on the trip. But
And also, if we're good with this objective, we've got our feedback on that part, we can move to slide 35, which we can think of topic areas for strategy development. So this is big picture, what we think we need to do to meet our objective. So one of the suggestions within the objective part was to make sure it's in Spanish. So Spanish would be like a bucket within the strategy development. And you can just add to the list as you please.
It was right during, you know, all the noise. There was this. Exactly. So as soon as you finish that round, but I'll give you a call back. Absolutely. No, thanks for checking in.
So each of these buckets of topics below between 36 and 41, slides 36 and 41, have back to the sticky notes. And so on there, you can think of strategies to address each bucket. So for the first one, we have languages, virtual engagement, in-person engagement, funding, internal engagement. So that would be city offices and partners, or like partners in the sense of the school system. And then pathways for engagement. So what activities to help improve direct access to, I believe someone wrote, citywide ways to participate in climate action and resilience. And y'all can do that in any order you want. Also, pick your favorite strategy bucket. We've got about 2 minutes left on this one. And then Kyle and I are going to switch places.
So Kenya, with regard to creating that culture, I know we've got virtual engagement, social media, but I was thinking about leveraging influencers in the community, whether they be radio, TV personalities. They, obviously we know media uses celebrities all the time to shape culture. So create, shape, sustain, dismantle.
Definitely a bit of dismantling coming from this planning process.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
We got about 1 minute left. Now it's time to get your last thoughts in for this one, and then you're going to talk about government accountability. Any last thoughts before I go? Switching it on up.
Thanks, Kendra.
Oh yeah, thank you. Okay. Hello. Hi, are we ready
Hey.
to talk about community engagement?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So if you could go to slide 32. So this is the objective as it stands now: support a culture of climate action and resilience through equitable communication strategies and engagement. So we're going to do the same thing we did with government accountability. Do we like this? What's missing? Do we need to change any of the wording? Does it actually talk about what our goal is, which is just to improve the engagement and communications of the city of Richmond? And then on slide 33, you could see what some of the feedback was from the previous group about this.
Can I ask you a question, and can I be the voice of dissent in all of this?
Yeah.
Where I feel like this, like it's supposed to be, and I think someone already wrote something that's like, it seems like government accountability could offer, yeah, like there might be something there. But it's like support like culture of climate action, resiliency through equitable communication strategies and engagement. I feel like it's not focused on engagement and communication.
Mm-hmm.
Like shouldn't be like support transparent transparent communication through like inclusive, like I don't know, like I have no idea how you would reword it, like that's, but I feel like we should be talking more about in the objective about why it's important to engage folks and what methods we use to communicate that stuff. Like the climate action and resiliency, and then that's the question marks resiliency. I'm not sure how broad it's supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
or not broad, I guess is my main thing, or just like I feel like if we're talking a lot more about like how transparent we are with this whole process, or or like how transparent it'll be through like the next 30 years or whatever we want it to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree with that feedback because I have definitely been looking at the two different objectives and I'm kind of like, I feel like we're reaching the same goal, but with these two objectives and it's not differentiated enough for them to be separate. So that is feedback I will really take and sit on. Oh, Ani, I love just like the cat paw. And also if we feel like we've moved past like the objective questions and like even with what Melissa said on, you know, transparency and how we going to communicate this and why we're trying to have equitable communication, you can go down to 35 to see what sort of themes and buckets that were created from the other group. And then slides 36 through 41 have the development of just the very start of strategies based on those buckets. But definitely on 35, see if all the themes about engagement and communication are really being addressed there as well. Or if there's anything you want to add, I suppose I should say.
Kendra, I have a question about funding that, this may be a silly question, but like in my mind, I'm like thinking about, you know, creating a fund to support, you know, community members, community liaisons, but like, I want the perpetrators of negative climate impacts to like pay for the fund. Like, is there a way that like Dominion can like donate to a city, like a municipal fund sponsored by the city? I don't understand like the public-private relationship. So I was just curious if anyone knew anything about that, or Kendra.
I'm pretty sure you can donate to the city. It's a little bit more complicated than if you were donate. I don't even know if it would count as donating, just like giving money to the city. It's a little bit more complicated than if we were a 501c3, that for the most part, it just never happens. But I think that that is definitely a possibility. And if not a possibility directly for donation to the city, one of the loopholes is that we can definitely do funding that's funneled through or controlled by nonprofit organizations that are partnered
Oh,
with the
okay,
city.
cool. I'm just trying to figure out ways to siphon money out of the private sector, you know?
That's just, yeah, never no to more funding.
Right, yes.
And we've got about 3 more minutes. Just popping in to let you know there's about 2 more minutes left in this. 'Tis all.
Kendra, if you all are done discussing, you all can come back if you want, because
Okay.
we're done.
Okay. right, do we feel good with where we're leaving this? I asked that question. The slides are always open, so you can always add more feedback if you want to. I'll definitely send out the link for emails. You can add more, change things if you want, but we are all going back together. Yeah, there we go. So you can hit leave breakout room now.
All right, thanks y'all.
All right, so this is the end of our meeting. Thank you so much. There's a lot of feedback to look over. Also, if you haven't filled out the survey for which strategies you would like to focus on moving forward, I mean, I guess that's a conversation we could have. We could all focus on all strategies, but that seems like a lot to ask from everyone. So in that survey, you can rank which top working group topics you're most interested in, and those would be the strategies that you would be looking at for the rest of this planning process. I will also send that out in the email as well as a link to the slides. Our next meeting is February 26th at 1 p.m. If there are no questions, concerns, thoughts, or anything anyone wants to share in general, that is the end. And thank you for attending.